On my most recent playthrough of 2017's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I was struck by a thematic story that I wasn't too invested in the first time around. Granted, I wasn't too concerned with the story then, as it's definitely not the focus of the game, but it's still compelling, and I think it deserves to be talked about, especially within the framework of the theme of Destiny. Zelda games frequently employ Destiny to typify their characters and heroes. Destiny simplifies things by making it clear what the goal is and why the characters do what they do. At the same time, it adds a little flavor to the generic knight must save the princess from the villain storyline by adding weight and a sense of something greater. The knight is courageous and the villain is malevolent not just because they are, but because Destiny requires it. So it's essential to remember this when examining the story of Breath of the Wild, which delves deeper into the effects of Destiny on an individual and whether or not Destiny should be trusted or relied upon. Now, the idea of fate in real life is tossed around, but I'd bet most people don't let it define their lives. Many may believe there is some overarching guidance in the world directing individuals toward a specific outcome in their life. Many may also believe this to be complete nonsense, that one's life is in one's own hands, and the universe pays no mind and has no intentions when it comes to the path a human takes through life. But certainly very few have to deal with the polar opposite of this, wherein the idea of destiny is ingrained so deeply within one's culture that one has been told since they were born that they have a very specific role to play in the world. In this case, one's upbringing would revolve entirely around the duty they have and the destiny they must fulfill. It sounds foreign to us, especially in Western culture, but this well describes the lives of Link and Zelda.
I doubt this will let up anytime soon. Your path seems to mirror your father's. You've dedicated yourself to becoming a knight as well. Your commitment to the training necessary to fulfill your goal is really quite admirable. I see now why you would be the chosen one. What if one day you realized that you just weren't meant to be a fighter? Yet the only thing people ever said was that you were born into a family of the royal guard, and so no matter what you thought, you had to become a knight. If that was the only thing you were ever told.
The cutscenes of Link's memories provide almost all of the knowledge needed to understand both his and Zelda's relationship with Destiny. Here, Zelda articulates and partly leaves for inference exactly the core of her frustration with Destiny. She acknowledges how swiftly Link takes to the role he's been told he must fulfill. He's brave, he's courageous, and he never hesitates. He's the ideal knight, the ideal hero, the ideal, protagonist for a Zelda game. And Zelda questions, obviously alluding to herself, what Link would do if things weren't that way. Zelda makes it clear that she understands what's expected of her, but she just doesn't take to it like Link does. It's obvious this is something she struggles with, and we get the idea that having her destiny imposed upon her so heavily means the emotional toil of not readily embracing that destiny makes her feel like a failure. And in the context of that destiny, she is failing. But she's still a good person. She's inquisitive and caring, she just lacks in one quality, and this reveals one of the dangers of Destiny. Destiny is a one-track mentality where you can possess every other positive attribute in the world, but if you aren't competent in the one area expected of you, you're vulnerable to seeing your life as a failure. While in the player's case, Destiny can reaffirm one's dedication to the virtues of courage and bravery, it can just as easily demolish the psyche of someone like Zelda. Before wading further into the waters of Zelda's relationship with Destiny, it's become clear that no examination of this would be complete without a thorough inspection of Link and Zelda's relationship, and what it can tell us about Destiny in Zelda's life.
Forged in the long distant past, the sword
Gee, this is uplifting. She's making it sound like we already lost.
Wasn't this your idea? You're the one who wanted to designate the appointed knight with all the ceremonial pomp, grandeur, and nonsense we could muster. And if you ask me, the whole thing does seem to be overkill. I think I'm on the same page as the princess regarding this boy.
Oh, give it a rest. That boy is a living reminder of her own failures. Well, at least that's how the princess sees him.
That boy is a living reminder of her own failures. This powerful line from Lady Urbosa sheds a dramatic light on how Zelda views Link. But we should start smaller. First, naturally, the two are close. Their lives are intertwined, and it can be assumed that they care about each other deeply. Nevertheless, Link's presence is always stained by the notion that they are connected by their correlated destinies. They're friends, of course, but there's no getting around the fact that they are primarily and inextricably linked by their roles in fate, and this puts Zelda in an odd position. Link is often obligated, sometimes even by factors underneath fate, to put his royal relationship above his personal relationship with Zelda. This coats their friendship often in the connotation Zelda associates with that part of her life she resents. She's emotionally far removed from her role as a princess, so when Link, out of his control of course, acts as a knight and not as a friend, it means her failures extending from her nobility infiltrate her regular everyday life, and everything conspires to remind her that she fundamentally is not the person she is expected to be. The hardest part of this for Zelda is highlighted by Link's nature. Link is, out of necessity, heroic. He's resolute, strong, tenacious, valiant, all the adjectives you could think of. And I say out of necessity because the game and its basic story wouldn't really function if he wasn't. So whatever the origin of these qualities or the reasoning behind them, this is how Link is characterized. Zelda admires this. They're admirable qualities. But a tinge of guilt and possibly envy ensures that Link's bravery is inadvertently representative of Zelda's lack of whatever quality it is she's pursuing. It's hard to tell what quality she should possess, since she is who she is, just like Link is who he is. But the fact remains that Link takes to his destiny, which requires bravery. Zelda does not, and this just doesn't make sense to her. It's the dilemma that characterizes the entire story, and its prevalence means any success Link finds without even trying exacerbates the emotional turmoil Zelda experiences. Now, there's actually no guarantee Link endures no struggles in coming to terms with his destiny. Obviously, he goes through a lot physically, but the thing about The Legend of Zelda is that you don't learn much about Link as a person, and he may struggle emotionally with his role like Zelda does. But in order to allow players to project onto him, and in turn allow players to generate their own narrative for Link's true feelings, he needs to be close to a blank slate. And I mention all this because it means the qualities we know Link possesses for sure are important. That he is heroic is integral to the story and to the context of the game, but it also has major implications for the story of Zelda, as we've learned. Another facet of this lack of depth in Link's character manifests itself as Link's consistency. Not only is he courageous, but he is always courageous. He's always strong, always fearless. According to the source material at least, he never hesitates. Ever. Never. And if there were just one moment he did, Zelda could see that and feel comfort in the idea that Link is not entirely good at this whole destiny thing. But he doesn't, and she doesn't. This confirms for Zelda that Link is steadfast in nature because it's destiny for him to be so. It's not just that Link happens to be a courageous person. He's courageous because destiny has ordained it that way. So it feels like a betrayal of destiny for her not to possess confidence in her abilities naturally. It already hurts her that Link is better at fulfilling fate than she is, despite the two of them being so connected. But the fact that Link doesn't appear to struggle at all in the way she does makes it more poignant. It feels like a mistake has been made. That's the only way to put it. Like, something's wrong with her, or with destiny, or with fate, and it doesn't make sense.
How did it come to this? The divine beasts, the guardians, they've all turned against us. It was Calamity Ganon. It turned them all against us. And everyone, Mifa, Urbosa, Rivali, and Daruk, they're all trapped inside those things. It's all my fault. Our only hope for defeating Ganon is lost, all because I couldn't harness this cursed power. Everything I've done up until now, it was all for nothing. So I really am just a failure. All my friends, the entire kingdom, my father most of all. I tried and I failed them. I left them all to die.
A tipping point in all this arrives when Zelda's failure is no longer just her problem. It has real consequences for her friends and the world around her. The calamity arrives, and the divine beasts and guardians are corrupted. Zelda is, as expected, unable to harness her power, and she realizes that the champions are trapped in their divine beasts. If they don't survive, it will be her fault. This isn't self-blaming out of altruism. Based on the barrage of information Zelda has received throughout her life, if they perish, it will have been preventable by her, and she will have failed. The weight of her inaction bears on her fully in this moment, and she breaks down. Only Link is left to comfort her. The juxtaposition is potent, with Link, who took to this duty so readily, needing to console his counterpart who failed. The cruelty of fate is finalized in the last Lost Memories cutscene. All hope finally seems lost as a guardian has the princess and her knight in its demonic sight. As it prepares its blast, Zelda's power finally awakens, disabling the guardians in the vicinity. It's too late for Link, as his injuries are too severe. Moreover, it's too late for everyone. Zelda has finally grasped her power, but it's too late. That is not a destiny fulfilled. That is being left behind by fate and having to catch up. In this moment, one can be grateful that Zelda at last pulled through, but one must also keep in mind that this is hardly a victory. And this illuminates what rescuing Zelda will truly mean. Her being trapped for 100 years is now understood beyond it just being a long time to be trapped. That 100 years is yet another product of Zelda's failure, and she's paying the price. Yes, she awoke her power, but it was too little, too late. Now, only you can save her and give her a chance to redeem herself, to redeem her destiny. We're granted the solace of knowing she'll be able to this time, but your rescue will carry a weight heavier than a generic knight saving a princess in need. And when you finally do, having liberated the divine beasts and the hero spirits trapped within, having regained your memories while learning simultaneously what your mission truly means, having struck down the calamity in its truest form, Zelda is left to silence him for good. And she does. She finally does. 100 years in waiting, freed at last by her appointed knight whom she always had utmost faith in, that faith deriving from Link's consistent and indefatigable dedication to his destiny. Zelda seals away the calamity and frees Hyrule. So, keeping all this in mind, Zelda's face as she does so makes sense. Not exactly one of triumph, or of fear, or regret even. She's somber, she's reflective, and she is still defeated. She has finally fulfilled her destiny. But why must calamity have reigned for 100 years? Why did the champions have to succumb? Why did her knight have to recover for a century and lose his memories? Why couldn't she have just succeeded in the first place so that none of this catastrophe had to occur? Was this all the plot of destiny after all? How could she have any confidence that she has actually fulfilled her destiny when she initially failed at it when it mattered? She could never view this final fulfillment of her duty as an ultimate success on her part because the destiny she understood as prescribed had not been fulfilled. And the crux of it is that she, as a person, hasn't changed. Neither has Link, yet her relationship with her destiny has. This still presents a dilemma, for as destiny, it should need no practice on her part. She was told that. The tradition of Hyrule stated so. But here she and Link are, 100 years after the transpiration of the calamity that took the lives of so many. Theoretically preventable, but unable to be stopped by the person destined to do so, now finally defeated. You, as the hero, should feel triumphant in this moment. I mean, you beat Ganon, you saved Zelda, you won the game. And, admittedly, in the final cutscene, Zelda starts to embrace this happy ending too, perhaps finally coming to terms with her lack of prowess in the Destiny department. But the wounds of a century cannot be healed in a moment, and there's no way Zelda can share totally in the player's sentiment of celebration. Too much has been lost, and as we discussed, too much of it feels like her fault. In my view, this is what makes the ending to this game truly bittersweet. Like it or not, things happened as they did. You two now have to rebuild Hyrule. Regardless of destiny, what's done is done. And while the story from your perspective may seem to be that of a storybook, The tale of Breath of the Wild from the other side, from Zelda's point of view, is a definitive tragedy. It's cruel, it's unfair, but it is what it is. The fact that the same events can be totally understood under either lens reveals the inherent complexities of destiny. Once a tool of simplification, Breath of the Wild morphs destiny into a theme that can change one's entire outlook on the story. As I stated, if you take to your perceived destiny with ease, it can guide you to a fulfilling life. But be told what your destiny is, yet never really identify with it to the point that you fail when in the pinnacle moment, despite seeing it come naturally to others, having believed that you shouldn't have to try, and knowing that failure isn't, and more importantly, shouldn't be an option, you fail then, and destiny is crushing. The Legend of Zelda has always been a story of destiny in one form or another, and Breath of the Wild provides players with an intimate look at the duality of destiny. It questions destiny's reality and its value in life, framing an already compelling story within the context of two intertwined individuals with strikingly disparate embodiments of their respective destinies.